What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Call-In Show presented by UGAsports.com. I'm your host, Paul Meharry, joined by my co-host, as always, Jason Butt and Ben Choppy Bachman. Guys, we're going to get into the NFL draft. We talked about it last week, kind of an NFL draft primer. Now we know where all these guys are headed. Some guys fell. I don't know if any guys really rose, but we'll talk about that. And why are the Falcons allergic to the Dawgs? That's the headline of this video. The Falcons are allergic to the Dawgs. We'll touch on that. But first off, before we do that, like we do every week, the link is in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. You can join us if you so dare to put your face out there or just do audio. You'll come into a virtual waiting room and I'll add you onto the show. What that means is you can come on and give your opinion of what happened in this draft from Thursday to late Saturday. It was a long draft. They've really drugged this thing out. So we're going to drag out the show as long as we can too. And if you don't feel like joining us, as always, we want to know where you're watching us from, guys and ladies. So put that into the chat. We'll get you up on the screen. And we're going to jump right into it. 90 seconds of me talking. Before we get started, though, Jason and Ben, I know Ben was like attached to his TV. Ben loves the NFL draft. So do I. You know what? That's pretty much.
Also, had notifications on. There's like two or three Twitter accounts that just every pick they'll just tell you. And I was like, okay, when I went away, I was like, okay, notification. Kenny McIntosh got us that story set up. Yeah. I'm reliable.
Yeah. So
I'm an asset to this site.
So we had the draft show with the players section, which is TK, Noshawn, and Blaine. And I got on there and I was watching Pat McAfee on YouTube, and he was like 5 or 6 minutes ahead of the actual NFL draft. So I was just spoiling picks. I spoiled the Bijan pick. Noshawn was very upset about that. He was still watching on TV. He was like on pick 6. So it was a good time. But guys, what about these Georgia Bulldogs? Jalen Carter was the first one to go. He went to the Eagles, pick 9, and right after the Atlanta Falcons pick. Jason, but you've covered the Atlanta Falcons. You've covered the Georgia Bulldogs. Why was Jalen Carter not a Georgia Bulldog?
Because of sheer stupidity.
Wow. Thanks for coming in hot tonight, Jason. Let's go, baby. I like it.
Look, they shouldn't be beholden to pick Georgia players. I think it's kind of silly when people say it just like that at face value. Like, they should take Georgia players. Well, no, you take the best player who's available. The best player available at number 8 was Jalen Carter. It was not Bijan Robinson.
Preach it.
Especially the fact that you bring in the fact that this is a running back. Mm-hmm. Have we learned nothing? I mean, if you're the Atlanta Falcons and then the Detroit Lions at 12, have they learned nothing? I mean, the NFL never fails to amaze with stupidity and people in front offices who think they're smarter than everybody else.
Jason,
and
I love
Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith just did it again. And people complained about the past regime. And somehow this group has been worse in the last 3 years. On top of that, they can't get Rich McKay out of the whole thing there, and that just muddies it up even more. And that's what you get. You need to rebuild on both lines of scrimmage, and you need to have a plan moving forward, and you go unicorn, receiver, unicorn, and you think you're going to build a championship roster with this.
This man came tonight, and he said, let me cook. Jason is cooking. He's been in the kitchen for a couple of days.
Well, I'm waiting, and I know it's going to come at some point for the Paul signature Falcons draft rant because it's justified. So Paul's going to have his rant at some point. It's going to go like close to at least 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I will say before that, I'll talk quick about UGA and the Falcons. Number one, I mean, you're supposed to be a running football team, and last year you picked like the 3rd best receiver with like the 8th pick in the draft. That makes no sense. No. That makes zero sense when you're supposed to be a running team. This year you pick a running back over Jalen Carter. And the reason why they did it, which it's not smart, but the reason why they did it was because of the optics. They didn't want the optics of taking Jalen Carter. They didn't. Because last year, Philadelphia is the one team that, they trust, okay, If the guy's got a medical or the guy's got an off field, but we have enough culture to take him in, we'll take him in and we'll make him a star. They should, if you have a good culture and you have enough trust, you should be able to take. Nakobe Dean's a first-round talent. He should not have been there in the third round. Jalen Carter should have been picked earlier than the ninth pick. The ninth pick. It is stupidity by Atlanta to take a running back because even Todd Gurley was top 10 pick out of Georgia, for example. Lasted 4 to 5 years. Had 4 to 5 really good years, and then boom, fell right off. You guys are Falcons fans. You guys know he was there for that 1 year. It was not the same. You're not getting a 10. You want to get a 10-plus year face of your franchise with a top 10 draft pick. A running back, even if Bijan is his top 5 back, he's only going to be that for 4 or 5 years. And what level of impact is he going to have? You can have any middle-of-the-pack running back. If you have a top 10 O-line, he's going to look better in yards per carry and yards just because you're O-line. So I don't get that at all. But also when it comes to the Georgia guys, I thought Broderick got picked at the ideal pick. And Nolan, entering the year, I thought he was going to be a late first, which he was. But I thought after the combine, he should have been picked in the top half of the first round. So him falling to Philly. I mean, Philadelphia loves Georgia. And I think the funniest part of all this is that a Florida grad is saying, I got to have Georgia players. I just think that's pretty funny.
Andy, I see you. I'm going to get to you. We've got somebody, Texas Mad Dog. You don't have a camera up, so let's see. Your devices are not connected anymore. You're okay. You're back. Let's. I'm gonna give you a shot. Okay, you got a camera. Okay. What's up, man? How's it going?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well, man. Just enjoying a beautiful day out here in Texas. Got my national champion back.
Nice.
I think this is the first year or second year.
That's
I don't know,
year.
but nevertheless, it's looking good. But I'm glad to be on. Huge Georgia fan. Just had a few questions for y'all. One of them being, if we're looking at next year's draft, how high do you think Brock Bowers goes? And if we had to say other first rounders going next year, who would that be? And I heard we have a Falcons beat writer or something here. What the hell's going on with them? And do we have any chance of drafting Georgia players next year?
Yeah. So I'll take the first part. I'll let Jason take the second part. He used to be a former beat writer for the Falcons. First part, I think you could see Brock Bowers as high as number 3. I really do. I think Caleb Williams is going to – I think Caleb Williams is number 1 next year. It doesn't matter who's taking him. It's going to be number 1. Marvin Harrison's probably up there or like one of those offensive tackles. But I think Brock Bowers is probably 3rd. Kyle Pitts went 4th. He was the highest tight end ever drafted, right?
Right.
I think he could beat that. He's better than Kyle Pitts. It depends on do teams really want to put that much weight into a tight end. We saw a ton of tight ends this draft get drafted. So right. I wonder, how those guys pan out. But I could see him as high as 3rd. Jason, I'll let you take a second part of that question.
Yeah, I don't know if I see him as high as 3rd. I just want to.
No,
I think that again, it's the Falcons that took the guy at 4, and they should have taken Justin Fields. I mean, let's be real here. But
yeah,
the Falcons, I don't know. I really don't. I mean, they clearly don't know anything about Georgia's football program because they took Justin Schaefer over Jamari Sawyer last year. I mean, I don't know what it is with these guys. I mean, I don't think that there's some inherent bias. I don't buy into that. They just don't, for whatever reason. Especially this group, they have their preferences, and hasn't been this Georgia group for the last 2 years, which is surprising given, especially the premier guys, I should say, and that is surprising given the need to build defense, the need to look long term on the lines of scrimmage, and the fact that they're back-to-back national champions. So. Maybe next year's the year where they take one of those premier guys, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off or anything. I saw a longtime listener, Rhett, I believe Womack mentioned that he sees Amarius Mims going top 15, and I agree with him. But I haven't heard much draft, buzz around Amarius, which is surprising given his size and really agility at tackle.
Yeah, I think he is a right tackle. Georgia likes him at right tackle. So I think that's probably why you haven't heard much. And he didn't get to start much last year. So, he'll get his chance this year to really shine. And Georgia, I mean, tackles have been crazy the past few years. Right. Broderick Jones, Sawyer, McClendon, Andrew Tom. I mean, the list just goes on and on of tackles they put in the league. Amarius will be that right there with him too, I think.
And it's a good tackle class next year because Joe Alt from Notre Dame and the kid from Penn State's supposed to be top 5. Like, you were saying, where does Bowers go? I think top 5. Reason I don't say lock. I mean, he could go top 3, but I think top 5 because I saw all the prospect big boards.
He real quick. He asked how high he could go. I said top 3. I didn't say where.
Like
I'm not locking that in.
Yeah. I see him going top 5 because Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then there's Marvin Harrison and the tackle from Penn State. They're the only other guys that anyone has ranked higher than Bowers anywhere in terms of prospects. So Bowers is one of the 5 or 6 best prospects. And if he was in this year's draft, he probably would have been easily picked in the top 10. Like, he would have been the best pass catcher by far. I don't even think it's debatable. I think next year, like, a lot of this depends on who has a good year. I think Lassiter could go first round. I think Smell Munding could be the first linebacker of the board because I think he tests phenomenally. And then, Mims, and the sleeper is, does Carson Beck go off? Because if Jason Butt's saying he's going to the Heisman, he's going to be the Heisman. He's top 10, so.
Finalist. I didn't say he will win.
What about Javon Bullard? Javon Bullard could be a first round pick too.
I just think they're going to knock him for size.
I think
he might be a second round.
I agree. And I'll leave y'all with this, and then I got to make my way out here. I heard you mention my boy Smell Mundin, so I want to get everybody's take on this. Do you think Smell Mundin will go higher than Quay Walker, or he's going to go somewhere lower than Quay?
What was Quay? 30? What was Quay last year?
22?
Was he?
I believe so.
He was on the back I think it's going to be identical.
Let's see. Quay was picked 22nd. No, he's not
identical, man.
He's not going as high as Quay though. No,
I think it's the same.
If he has a good year, like we would expect, I think anywhere between 15 and 32 is likely. I mean,
here's one thing I don't think you guys are taking into account. You take a guy like Travon Walker. I mean, he didn't play as well as he should have when he got drafted, but he went into the combine and absolutely tore it up.
Yeah, right.
I have a hard time thinking Smell Mundin's not going to go in there and be one of the, sub 4 or 5 guys, 40-inch verticals, going to be all over the field. So I think with that coming into play, he could be a top 15 pick. So,
well, hey man, you got MAF 1824 agreeing with you in the chat, so you're doing something right.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
yeah,
Paul, you also have to say this. All of us watched, the film and the game tape live of Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. You could tell Nakobe Dean's the better player, and Quay Walker still went first.
You're right.
So you can't convince me otherwise. The NFL wouldn't still pick.
It'll probably be the same thing with Dumas Johnson and Mundin. Probably the same exact thing.
Yeah,
I see Jamon going somewhere in the 2nd to 3rd round if he comes out, but I like to see him stay another year. But that probably won't happen. But good talking to you, fellas.
Yeah,
Go
man,
Dawgs.
we appreciate you.
Love you guys' content, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.
Hey, man, you too. Take it easy out there in Texas.
Appreciate it.
Word on.
You take care.
Yeah. Let's get Andy Stowe in here. Andy, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing all right. So, we're just talking about how these. We haven't even really got into the actual Georgia guys getting drafted besides Jalen Carter, but we're really just harping right now on the Falcons being allergic to dogs. And damn, if it didn't fall perfectly with Jalen Carter coming, still being on the board, right? Falcons are there. It's a need, and they don't take them. And so, Andy, I know you follow a ton of folks on Twitter, and you see all this, and they've all stated, well, the Falcons brought in 25 sacks in the offseason with players they brought in.
About that. No.
Yeah. So Andy, you're a diehard Falcon dog fan. Are you now switching allegiances to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Okay, so no, I'll never pull for a Philadelphia team. I pull for the Dogs. I pull for the Braves. I pull for the Falcons. So even though they're stupid, I'll pull for them. But like I don't care. It's not that I'm because he's a Bulldog that they didn't take him that I'm mad about. It's if Alabama when they're rolling or Clemson or even if Florida's rolling, whatever, take the players from the best teams. And I mean, Bijan Robinson, he got 52 yards versus Alabama on the ground, and I know he had 73 or whatever in the air, but that's the only defense with a pulse they played. And I don't see the value. I just don't when you got a generational defensive tackle. I don't care if he plays at Georgia or Bama or Ohio State, whatever. Take the guy. I mean, it's just dumb. That's just the Falcons. And then like even the second pick is that Matthew Bergeron.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they had him projected to go 56, and the Falcons
they traded up for him. They
traded up for him.
Yeah, why not? Trade it for this guy.
Syracuse. I don't even know if he can block me, and I'm 5'8" and 160 pounds. I mean, so it's like, really, like, come on. How do they? That's what it gets me. I just don't know where they come up with these ideas. I will say this though, they did take a DB, offensive lineman from Alabama and South Carolina in the 7th round. Most of the time, they're going to Southwestern State University in the 7th round, being the smartest guy in the room. So I will give them that. That's a plus. I'll say that's a plus. But I don't know. Falcons, they falcon it up every year. I just don't understand.
I like that. Falcon it up every year.
They do. I mean,
yeah, that was tough. Ben, you're a Ravens guy. Before we kind of go down,
congrats on Lamar Jackson. Sorry to
yeah.
Congrats on getting him back.
Well, Paul, you wanted Lamar, right?
Oh God, yes. This offense is made for Lamar. What are you talking about? This is the quintessential Lamar offense down here in Atlanta now. And here's
I just talked to a couple.
Okay, you know what? You started it. We're
gonna.
We're gonna do it.
We're
gonna
do
it.
it.
You did it.
I didn't see it last year, so I'm ready for this.
And here's the thing. Look, if the Falcons were going to draft Bijan Robinson at 8, that was their plan all along, right? Because obviously it was. Jalen Carter, the best player available, was sitting right there. Okay, and you had Algier last year run for 1,000 yards. You have Cordell Patterson, who is very serviceable, who showed you that he can be a Swiss Army knife and can be in the backfield. If your plan going into this draft was to draft Bijan Robinson at 8 and not take Jalen Carter, who fell to you, then you have to make that trade for Lamar Jackson. Because at that point, you're only giving up 1 first-round pick because you're wasting it on Bijan Robinson. You don't need him if you bring in Lamar, right? Then you're just giving one first-round pick for Lamar Jackson. Instead, we're here with Desmond Ridder, who I don't know. I live right down the street from Flowery Branch, the facility. I don't know if the custodians there trust Desmond Ridder, much less the GM and the head coach. And we're stuck with him now, as opposed to this whole thing could have changed, right? Lamar Jackson. You want to talk about selling tickets? Arthur Blank is a businessman. You sell the stadium out. You sell the stadium out if you get Lamar Jackson. But anyways, my blood pressure is rising right now. I'm zooming, Ben. You pass on Jalen Carter, and then, and I want to trust this. I want to believe this, guys. I really do. I want to believe this, that the Falcons were trying to get up for Nolan Smith, and they couldn't, because that was what they were saying, right? The Falcons wanted to get back into the first round. And they didn't do it. Clay Melton says, and put the Falcons in salary cap hell for the next 8 years. Just got out of that. No thanks. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Either salary cap hell or we're just going to be in pure hell and not win games.
Real quick, remember last year
Division's awful though.
Remember last year they tried to go all in for as much as they could for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And then they decided Lamar wasn't what they wanted.
So a guy like raped like 28 women, you'd rather get him than
They make absolutely no sense as an organization.
Oh, that's a rough look, buddy.
Yeah,
so we're gonna pass on Jalen Carter for driving fast, but hey, if this guy raped 28 women, you know what? We'll give up the 2 first. We'll give you a big ass contract. Paul.
Look, and so that's where I am. I did not want them to sign Lamar Jackson because I was like, build the line and do all that. If I'd have known they were just going to go get a halfback, sign him or trade for him and do it. Because what's the point? Like if you're not going to help out, I mean, I know they gave him a halfback, but if you're not going to help out Desmond Ridder, and I don't think he's the answer, but I'm like, are they at that point to go out and make the big splash? But if you're just going to get a halfback, why not just go ahead and get the elite quarterback and try it and see? Because that's how I am. Like if this was the plan, like you said the whole time, go ahead, dude. Just go ahead and make the trade.
That's
what's the difference to me, y'all? Maybe someone smarter than I am here, but what's the difference between Bijan Robinson and Zach Charbonnet for what they do as an offense in Atlanta? So why Bijan Robinson at 8 when you could have gotten Zach Charbonnet or a back like that in the second round with where they were picking and not have to trade up for the Quebec man from Syracuse?
Paul, I have a really quick point. That'll be real quick. You know that since they drafted Bijan, he's like already, because of where he was picked, one of the 6 or 7 highest paid running backs.
He's the 4th highest paid running back in the league.
4th. That's also something that I go.
Don't
make sense.
It's a front office malpractice, is what it is.
They got Tyler Algier in the 5th round, the 151st pick. He went over 1,000 yards. Is Bijan Robinson? Is he going to go 1,500? I mean, is that really
and look,
4 rounds the value?
Look, I like Bijan. I think hearing his interviews and things like that, I think he's a quality young man. Like, and I think that, unfortunately, for Falcons fans, had something to, like the Falcons front office really dug into that, and they were like, we want quality guys in this. I want football players, man. Like, I don't care if this guy doesn't talk to the media at all. He doesn't even want to talk to the media. Doesn't bother me. I want football players. But this guy is like happy-go-lucky. He's like, yeah, man, I'm so excited to be a Falcon. I love it here in Atlanta. No, man. I mean, he's cool, but at the same time, I don't know, man. If you were going to draft a running back, you could have just traded your 2 first-round picks and gotten Lamar and gone down that route. That's where I'm getting at with that. I don't even want to get into the fact that, Nolan Smith, Broderick Jones. You could have brought in Broderick Jones.
Oh, I know who Paul really wanted, Jason. We all know who Paul really wanted. He wanted them to go, you know what? He fell. Take Will Levis. You know that's what Paul wants. That's his boy.
That's who they were trying to trade into the first round for, actually.
Well, Brent's to blame for the boost.
Could you imagine? Oh,
Jason, you know it's all Brent's fault why Bijan ended up there. He called it like 2 months
ago. He did. We laughed at him.
The freakiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I laughed at him, man.
On here, I was like, watch, the Falcons do not rule out Bijan Robinson at 8. I'm like, you're crazy, Brent. They did it.
Dane said they should be fired.
Yeah, I mean, you just look. I mean, puts that Kenny McIntosh. Like, do you think Bijan Robinson's going to just completely outperform Kenny McIntosh?
I thought Caleb Huntley looked good too last year.
Yeah, I did too. I don't. That's why I don't see the need. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Is this guy okay? I'm going straight. I hope no Sean's not listening. I think Todd Gurley's the greatest halfback I've ever seen at Georgia. I mean, I wasn't alive when Herschel was here, but Todd Gurley's generational. Is Bijan Robinson Todd Gurley? Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But like, is he really worth the 8th pick of the draft? I mean, is he going to go out there and be Todd Gurley? I don't know that. I mean, is he going to be LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson? And is he going to get past his rookie contract? Is that the only contract he sees in Atlanta? Or I mean, will he get to
that's the only contract he sees? Yes, absolutely.
So the 8th pick of the draft, you get 4 years, and you send him down the road. And I mean, you could have had a generational defensive tackle.
Well, think of everybody though, because now you know all those contracts will eventually come up, and you may not have a quarterback. So, I mean. Who do you re-sign to keep out of your Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson? All those salaries are ginormous by the time it comes to that next contract. And then you have a quarterback in Desmond Ridder right now. You have no idea what you're going to do. If you have to draft another guy next year, you have to plan for that contract if it pans out. I mean, again, it's the long-term outlook on this is so piss poor from a front office management standpoint.
It reminds me of the Giants when the Giants took Saquon.
It's Dave
You're the
Gettleman.
number 2 pick. Your offensive line is bottom 5 in the league. You take a running back. Like, okay, you're just saying, hey, you're flashy and you're going to get killed here. You're going to get hurt. What happened with Saquon? He tore his Achilles twice in 3 years. That's what's going to happen to you. I always say if you're in the top 10, unless your offense and defensive line are both like top 10, top 5, you either get a quarterback, you get a big-time edge rusher D lineman, or you get no lineman. Unless you're a superstar team, you don't take a flashy position. You don't take receiver. You don't take DB. I'm also kind of against taking inside linebacker in the first round now to a degree because it's not as valued in the NFL. You can't take that position unless you're like Dallas at the end of the first. Dallas could have done it. Yeah. Dallas took Bijan. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They have good O-line. They're a playoff team. Maybe he gives them the boost over the edge. Unless you're a team like that, or Philadelphia could have honestly done it, unless you're a team like that, you should not take a running back in the first round. You just shouldn't.
Yeah, it's hard to even say, especially a team like the Falcons, is it worth taking them in the second round? I mean, that's the thing. They're not good enough. you're not getting enough value. I mean, you need linemen. Like I'd be all for drafting O-line and D-line every pick and go with it. But it's just there's no value. There's a waste of pick. I mean,
well, enough about these sorry Falcons, man. Let's move on. Andy, I'm gonna let you go. I see Eddie's waiting in here. But I appreciate you staying with us and ranting with us about these Falcons.
Oh yeah, it's been eating me up since Thursday night. I just kind of it's the life of a Falcon fan.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you.
All right, man. See you.
See you, Andy.
Let me get Eddie in here. Eddie.
Hey, boys.
Hey, man. Well, we've gotten on our soapbox about these Falcons a little bit, but I do want to move on from the Falcons. So if you don't mind, can we talk about these other? Or you got one thing to say?
If that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let me get the good out of the way. I think Bijan is going to be. You guys may have said this already. It's going to be Alvin Kamara Part 2, but I think he's going to be better than Alvin Kamara. He's that kind of a back. I think he's really going to be good. And I told you guys this was going to happen, right? I did predict this. This is exactly what Arthur Smith wants to do, pound the rock. And I knew when Bijan Robinson was available, he was going to pick him, no doubt about it. And it'll be great for the offense. I really think it will. But the butt of that is Bijan Robinson is a luxury pick. And the Falcons are not in the business right now of picking luxury picks. They're not a luxury franchise at this point. No way, okay? And Jalen Carter's sitting there. You got to take him. That's a generational player on your defense. Not only that, guys, this is what drives me crazy. And I don't know if it's Arthur Blank, I think it's Arthur Blank. I
can give you the answer right now. It's Arthur Blank. It's Arthur Blank and Rich McKay. And a lot of it's Rich McKay.
Yeah. So, but Jason, I would think a businessman as smart as Arthur Blank is would understand that if you bring a kid on board that you need, by the way, that's a generational talent that has been on one of the best programs in college football history 2 years running, is going to sell PSLs if you sign this guy. I would think he would jump to the podium to get a kid like that on board because it brings people like myself, tons of other people that I follow or talk to are humongous Georgia fans and kind of about the Falcons. You bring somebody like that on board, Jordan, same last year with Jordan Davis, and he didn't do it. That puts butts in the seats that care more about this franchise. I just don't understand it from that perspective.
Doesn't make sense, Eddie. What does make sense, though, is the rest of these picks for the Dawgs, man. Broderick Jones, my buddy, he's a huge Steelers fan.
I hate that.
Huge Steelers fan. And we're just getting bombarded right now with people trying to connect to the – stop connecting if you're not a Georgia fan. Anyways, sorry to throw off my game there. He texted me and was like, yo, he doesn't follow college football. He's like, yo, tell me about this Broderick kid. And I was like, I think you got a 10-year left tackle. A great place for Broderick to go was to the Steelers up there. And then right after him, Nolan gets to go with his buddies up to Philadelphia. So there's your first three first-round picks. Who out of those three, we'll go around the horn here, who out of those three has the most successful career? And we're not trying to doubt the other two. All three of them might be all pros. Who out of those three has the best career? Jason, we'll start with you, Ben, and then Eddie.
You're talking about the three first-rounders?
First-round picks, yep.
It's hard not to think Broderick Jones.
Yeah.
Just because of where he is, the position. If he stays healthy, you like what he did at Georgia. He translates so well to the NFL game. He can be the cornerstone for that offensive line, and they need help so badly. Over the first half, 2/3 of the season, Najee Harris was just couldn't get any room and just getting killed. And they started getting a little better as the season went down, finished up and everything. But I think he probably has the best chance of being most successful. Really, nature of the position and what we've seen so far. But I think the other two guys can be equally as successful. Jalen Carter's generational talent. You hope that everything lines up well. He's going into a great culture with 4 former teammates now with him who really understand him and can help him if things are going a way that was not expected. And then, of course, Nolan Smith. We all know the kind of character and the kind of person He is and what he brings to the table. But yeah, if I had to pick between those three, I like Broderick Jones the best, especially where he ended up.
Before you go, Ben, Miss Mary Embroidery, she is a big part of the family here on the Call-In Show and the POS, says, feels like they all ended up in places where they all have a chance to succeed. I couldn't agree more. There isn't a guy, I'm going down this list, even through like all the way to Kenny McIntosh. All these guys ended up in really good organizations. So none of these guys ended up in a place where I was like, man, this guy's not going to be able to at least have a chance to have a really good career. Ben, I think you're in agreement. Broderick Jones, probably the best fit.
I wish Broderick success, even though I wish his team lose every game. But I'll admit, like, for as much as I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, I hate them more than any other team ever. They know offensive players. Like, I'll say this, like, Jason knows this because he covered the Ravens. I'm a fan. They draft every position good but receiver. They've never drafted a good one. Whenever Pittsburgh drafts one, it's good. That's why I'm like, George Pickens, if you tell me Pittsburgh's willing to draft him, he's going to be good. Broderick Jones, and it kills me having to say this, with Broderick Jones, you're taking a first-round tackle, Broderick's going to be damn good. That organization knows, especially people know them for defense historically, which they're pretty good at. They're one of the top 3 or 4 organizations in football. That kills me to say it, but offensively, they rarely miss these days. And I think Broderick's going to be a guy, he's an every down player where Jalen Carter's going to rotate because he's on the defensive line. So I think that's going to, that's one thing. And also the team he's going towards. Same with Nolan, where they're going to have like a year or two where they might be rotation or might not have to play. Broderick's going to be a starting left tackle for 10 years, where he's going to be in every play left tackle. And he's going to an organization. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in all 15 years as a head coach or so. He's going to a great organization. It's going to be Broderick Jones, in my opinion, because he's the safe pick.
Eddie, what you got?
So I may be mistaken about this. Wasn't Broderick Jones one of the highest rated either linemen or players ever graded, I'm saying, at the University of Georgia? Am I wrong about that? I could have sworn I had read that somewhere. Anyway, is that right?
Yeah, he was second to Mims, I think, ever.
In terms of being
the highest graded as in perform, they grade. Yeah, can you hear me?
Like the PFF?
PFF?
Yeah, PFF. Thank you, Jason. Anyway, all that being said, Ben kind of said what I was going to say is that Jalen and Nolan are going to be more rotational, and that team is already loaded. They're kind of walking into a loaded situation. Secondly, let's not discount Broderick Jones is going to have Darnell Washington on the line with him. And I think that helps him right there become an even better player. So I would say Broderick Jones, no doubt.
I want to say this, not to pile on to the Steelers and depress Ben even more, but Darnell Washington going to Pittsburgh, they need to improve their run blocking tremendously. And they added Darnell Washington to the mix. That to me, that those are 2 absolutely unreal picks.
It was hilarious. For you guys that aren't privy, we have a group chat that all of us UGA sports members are a part of. Well, members, faculty, I guess you could say. And Brent Rollins put in the chat that Darnell had been drafted by the Steelers before we saw it on TV. I guess he saw it in a tweet. And Ben instantly wrote back a very bad word and then off. Because he does not like the Steelers, and obviously Darnell Washington being that pick, he's the next guy to come off the board. So we had to wait a little bit, guys. Friday night was a weird night because I tweeted out, I was like, hey man, how many dogs go? And I think a lot of people had 2 or 3, and we saw 1 go right at the end of the night. And I thought Keely Ringo was going to go second round. Obviously, something happened with him, which we haven't heard anything. With Darnell Washington, we heard, and this is so weird how this comes out, right? Because as folks who cover the team and are on the beat and, big-time fans like Eddie who stay up on this type of stuff, none of us had heard anything about Darnell's knees swelling up at the combine. Like, that was just so out of left field. And it's like, what I think the NFL, and Jason alludes to it a lot, like we think of this as this mighty organization, but it just seems like sometimes it's just this big group of telephone, and the first guy hears it. And then by the time it gets to the 10th GM, they're like, Darnell does not have knees. Don't draft him. He does not have knees. They took him out at birth.
What probably happened is he probably had some knee swelling at the combine. And again, it goes back to the overthinking of things.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That information doesn't get out. It's never made public. But usually in the case of Darnell, where you think you're going late first round, second round, and then you fall to the end of the third, because of this, you start putting out that information. Hey, my guy has a knee issue or knee swelling. It's not a big deal, but that's the concern, to kind of downplay the reason why he's falling in the draft. And that would be my best guess as to why suddenly out of nowhere, Todd McShay or whoever else is saying, well, he's got teams are concerned about knee issues. That wouldn't be anything a team would put out there, because these teams want him to keep falling, but then all of a sudden you put that out, and then that's going to drive more interest to take him before it's too late.
Why is this an every year thing, though?
It's an every year thing.
3 years in a row, the biggest faller has been a Georgia player over a previous medical from years ago. Darnell, last year it was Nakobe, and the year before it was Aziz. When I saw Aziz, I'm like, the guy led the SEC in sacks. Like, that was the pick that made me pissed at the Ravens. Was they picked Adafe Owe had 0 sacks his last year in college. A guy had 0 sacks his last year in college and was picked in the first round. And Aziz Oshaloy led the SEC in sacks and was not picked until like the late second. How does that make sense? I understand Trayvon Walker went number 1 because of the measurables and stuff like that. But at least he had production, and at least you knew, okay, he may have not been in his natural position. There's a lot of arguments for why he went high. And he did it at the combine versus a random pro day where this guy runs like a 4.6, had 0 sacks, but I digress. But anyway, Aziz gets an injury from high school. He drops down the late second. Nakobe gets a cleanup surgery after his sophomore year, drops him to the middle of the third when he was the best linebacker in the country, not even close. And then Darnell Washington, you're not going to get, at least from a blocking standpoint and just as a sheer specimen, as for a tight end, there's not one like him. Look at Mercedes Lewis. He's been in the league for like 80 years, it feels like. He's just like him. I don't understand why this one little medical, unless you're telling me his knee's degenerated and he's never going to play, unless you can prove that to me, like it's like Todd Gurley, whose knee just fell off, then you can't justify it.
Yeah, Eddie, what was your take? So Friday night, I don't know if you're watching the draft or not. You might have been watching basketball. I know you like your sports. What was your take when you're sitting there? Because for me, man, second and third round, I'm like, where are the dogs at? Who let the dogs out?
It was a little surprising to me. Yeah, it was a little surprising to me, no doubt. And both of you guys probably touched on the reasons why, some of the smokescreen stuff, it seems like. But I tell you, the biggest shock to me was Kenny McIntosh. Didn't he go, 273? Wasn't he that pick?
7th round, yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, Seattle got an absolute steal with Kenny McIntosh in the 7th round. I mean, that's just insane that he dropped that far. That kid out of the backfield, and he said it when he got drafted. He was like, whatever you want me to do, up the middle, round the edge, I'll catch a pass, block for you, whatever. I'm ready. And that's the way he played football. He did everything well as a running back, and to drop that far just blew me away.
And again, it's one of those things, right, where everybody who's a fan of a team thinks that their guys are probably a little bit better than they are. Okay, because you've watched them, you've relied on him to take your alma mater to better heights, right? But I totally agree with you on Kenny Mack. I think that his 40 time hurt him a ton. But when you look at a 40 time like that, he ran 4.65. I think you have to turn back on the tape, right? And Andy Stowe, I beat you to it, Andy. Andy wrote it in the chat. His 40 time hurt him, but he plays faster than his 40 time. With guys like Kenny McIntosh, the NFL again kind of overanalyzes things, and they go and find this running back out of Southwest State University. They're like, this guy's better than Kenny McIntosh. He ran a 4.49 and had 700 yards rushing. Well, Kenny McIntosh ran against every defensive lineman that got drafted in the first round and didn't drop a pass his entire career. But you want to look at his 4.65. So, yeah, Kenny McIntosh is one of those guys, for a while there, there was only 10 more picks, I think, in the 7th round. I thought he wasn't going to get drafted. I was going to say somebody's going to pick up a heck of an undrafted free agent, but the Steelers made a great call there.
I just wonder.
It goes back to how dumb I think the Falcons are. You pass. Sorry, Jason, I'll say this real quick. You pass on Bijan Robinson. You take Jalen Carter. You can just have Kenny McIntosh anytime you want later on. Tell me he doesn't fit that scheme that Arthur Smith's running. Sorry,
any running back with a pulse, Eddie, fits Arthur Smith's scheme.
Well,
if he can run, So let's, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, if in the lead up to the combine, if and before Kenny McIntosh is running his 40, if he was testing in the high 4.5s, I wonder if he should have just scrapped it. And when you put a time like that out there, it's going to make teams think. And obviously that hurt his draft stock, even though we saw what he did at Georgia. And yes, the game's a lot faster in the NFL. Everybody's fast, everybody's elite. So those things will weigh maybe a little heavier than they should, and when it comes to the front offices, because when you're trying to decipher and pick between a lot of these running backs who otherwise have had really successful college careers, you're then trying to say, okay, where's the advantage? And if you run a 4.6, you're going to end up that's going to end up downgrading you more than probably it should. And if it makes me wonder, whoever was advising him, if he was running, kind of goes back to Elijah Holyfield too. I mean, whoever's advising these guys when they're testing not great at the 40, should they even do it? There's a reason why a lot of guys these days are skipping that, especially the more high profile guys. There's no need to accidentally set yourself up for failure.
Maybe him running wide open in the end zone and falling down kept him going to 70 pounds.
I don't know.
Paul, I do actually have a question, because you've been bringing up like steals. You already know what my answer is for who's the biggest steal of all the UGA players picked. You know what my answer is.
Yeah, I know who it is. Yeah.
And it's also the one player who probably went to the only organization I'd say is questionable, because their organization track record is
correct
subpar, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. Christopher Smith, I'm telling you, the Raiders secondary always is awful. He might be one of the top 2 or 3 DBs on that team right away. I looked at their safeties they have. They're subpar at best. It's nice.
Hold up. You said Christopher Smith, one of their top 2 or 3 DBs day one?
Their DBs are horrific. I don't think you understand how bad the Raiders DBs are. And their defense in general is awful.
Okay. All right. Fair
enough.
They're
pretty bad.
I mean,
not lying.
Like you for as much as you bash the Falcons today, the Falcons should kill the Raiders. Their roster should be much better, and they should be able to just beat up the Raiders. Like, the Raiders are a joke. They are. They're soft in the trenches, and their secondary can't cover me. So I look at Christopher Smith and say that is one of the smartest football players that they've had in the Kirby Smart era. And if he ran, and remember, Paul, me and you were going at it last week, when Louis Riddick on the broadcast said if this guy was at least like a 4.40 type guy, he would have been at least a second-round pick, because he would have been in a down safety year. It's the speed. If he was fast, he would have been a second-round pick, which for safety is elite. Let's be real here. That speed kills him, because people think if they ever have to match him up one-on-one versus a guy like that, they get a mismatch, they could kill him down the field. That's why he dropped. But if outside of the concerns about his long speed, he's as solid of a safety as it comes. And I think if you get him in the 5th round for a team that all around is awful, I think he might be the steal of all the Georgia players.
One question before we go, Eddie, before I let you roll, because we got to jump to the rest of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Who your favorite Bulldog landing spot out of all of them? And it doesn't have to be, because we already talked about the first rounders who we think is going to be the best fit out of all the guys that got drafted. Who do you see?
I know this is crazy, but I'm curious to see what Stetson Bennett does out in LA.
Oh, you crazy son of a gun.
That's how I was going to say.
Stafford's long in the tooth, man. You never know. We'll see.
I'm with you, Eddie. I'm with you. It's like, it sucks because you don't root for injury, but you don't want to. This is the one guy you don't root to lose his job. There's so many other quarterbacks you'd be like, yeah, I want something bad to happen, and then Stetson, like, not bad as in like injury, but bad as in he doesn't play well, and then Stetson gets a chance. So that's the part that kind of sucks when you look at Stetson. But yeah, I would love nothing more than to see him get an opportunity on the field as a rookie.
Eddie, that's a hell of a pick. And
Penn did want me to tell you something on that. He goes, maybe now it's not Stetson versus Justin Fields who's better. Now the debate is it Stetson or Matthew Stafford? Who's the better quarterback? That's what Penn wanted me to tell you. Because that's the biggest loss in the draft is we did not get Stetson in Chicago for the whole board and the whole Georgia fandom going nuts. Him versus Fields.
But Eddie, man, we appreciate you jumping on with us as always.
Thank you,
my
guys.
friend.
Have a great night.
See ya.
Take care, Eddie.
You too. All right, guys, we've talked about almost every prospect. We haven't jumped really into Keely Ringo, Stetson, Robert Beal, Warren McClendon. First off, let's talk about Keely real quick. I don't know why he dropped. Maybe had you told me at the beginning of the year, or told anybody at the beginning of the year, Keely Ringo is going to get drafted 4th round, 3rd pick. Do you want over under that? I think everybody would have taken the under. And here we are, him with the fourth round going to the Eagles. I mean, goodness gracious, that team up there is going to be fun to watch them just because there's going to be so many dogs on the field. And Swift gets traded to him. Keely Ringo, I think what hurt him were his hips, but he also played a lot of man coverage. So best of luck to him. You guys got anything you want to talk about on Keely? Because I'm going to go to Stetson.
The only thing that stands out, the first thing I thought of as he was falling was I think a lot of us really thought negatively of that story that cited the assistant coach who said Keely Ringo's not that good of a football player. I think it was heading into the Tennessee game? It was something like that. And it just felt like it came out of nowhere and that it just wasn't true. And maybe there's just something. Maybe there's some just real technical stuff that we're missing when it comes to Keely. Because I mean that one was obviously the biggest surprise, more of a surprise than Kenny falling to the 7th round. I mean, really didn't. I thought late 2nd round at worst for Keely Ringo. So to see him early in the 4th was really a shock. And the Eagles even said that they didn't think he was. And the Eagles didn't need a corner really. So. Just that's a luxury pick for them right now, and he gets to learn from as Howie Roseman said, some Pro Bowlers in the secondary. So it just makes you wonder what was being said, what people actually think of him that we might not be seeing. That's the only thing that really comes to mind right now.
I'm confused because even if some team said maybe it's best to move him to safety, if he was a safety, he might be the best safety in this class. Honestly, with his skill set, and then you look at Brian Branch is tiny and runs a 4.6. I mean, he's the same size and speed as Chris Smith, and you're telling me that a guy who's 6'2" with that level of speed, if the stiffness is an issue, put Keely, and you want to put Keely at safety, he would be a top 50 pick. There's no debate. Even as a corner, remember Tyson Campbell was a guy who everyone was like, he can't get his head around, can't play the ball. Got picked top of the 2nd round. He was a top 5 corner in the NFL this year. I think that with more time to grow and to learn behind 2 great DBs like Slay and Bradbury, I think he's going to have a long NFL career. I really do. Because I just look at it as he's in the right situation, and he's in a similar deal that Tyson Campbell was, where a lot of people had similar gripes about him. And I remember hearing the same safety argument about Tyson Campbell. And look, he made it out pretty well in the NFL so far.
Shout out to Christy. Thanks for joining us a little later on here, Christy. She says Stetson Stafford. Well, 100% Stetson. That was her favorite pick. Stafford would help his dog brother. Yeah, guys. Again, we talked about Keely and said, hey, man, Keely Ringo, 4th round pick. Over, under. You would have taken the under. We say Stetson Bennett, 4th round pick. You probably would have taken the over. But if you go back a few shows, guys, pretty sure I said 4th round for Stetson. Pretty sure I did.
Somebody said 3rd round. Was it you, Ben? Somebody said 3rd round.
I think it was you that said 3rd round.
I said up to 3rd round, but I landed on 4th. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was 5th, I think, the whole way.
Yeah.
And Brent said 3rd round to the Dolphins.
Yeah, I love that.
That's right. That's right.
I love that.
I said 4th all the way.
Did you really?
Okay.
Yeah, because I think some people are going as high as 3rd, and then some people are saying late. I go, I'm just going to stick to 4th, because then honestly, the only reason I picked 4th because I was like, this is the safest. I don't look like I'm going too high or too low, and.
But here's the thing. Chrissy says she was 4th, and she said, y'all know the Dogs are elite when we have a Swamp Lizard alum going to bat for us. So
That's good, Christy.
yeah.
So, Paul, also, I also have one quick question. So, if before the year you were talking about,
None
if
of
we
your
had the
questions-
over under
first
for
off-
Keely Ringo,
Your questions are never quick.
no,
They're like a
This
long
is just a
story.
quick one. Would you have said Will Levis and Stetson Bennett were within 2 rounds of each other, Paul?
No, I
you
would
have
not.
said that?
Absolutely not. No, I wouldn't.
Oh
have.
wow,
I wouldn't have.
you
no.
loser.
Uh,
That's a bum pick. For your Heisman, Paul's Heisman, Will Levis, not even going first round. It's the Paul curse. It's the Paul
yeah,
curse.
it is. It is what it is. But hey, man, Stetson Bennett going to the Rams, guys. I want to kind of deep dive into this. Then we've got about 10 more minutes. We'll talk about Beal and McClendon going to the Rams. Hell, McClendon's going to start at right tackle, and Sawyer's going to be their left tackle. And they got him in 5th and 6th round.
Sawyer's on the Chargers.
Wrong LA.
Okay, whatever. So one of them's going to start at left tackle.
And they are moving Sawyer back to guard now that
okay, one of them's going to start at guard.
Slater is healthy. Yeah. So.
Okay, so one of them's going to start at guard. One of them's going to start for the
There you
Rams.
go.
Yeah, whatever, guys. You get what I'm freaking saying, okay? Tomato. But back to Stetson. I don't think if you look at the teams that, quarterbacks in the league, I don't think Stetson could have gone to a better place. Because now, if you look at the Rams depth chart, guys, and I'm going to pull it up real quick, I don't think they had a backup quarterback like on their roster. Let me see.
No, I think they were all gone because even the Rams tweeted something out that was like quarterback room before the draft, and it was like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air empty room in the last episode, and it was just Stafford, and then it was like quarterback room after the draft, and it's Stafford and Stetson.
Yeah,
and that's it.
So they have on their depth chart, they literally have Stafford and Stetson.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if he could have gone to a better place. Stetson.
The Rams got a veteran quarterback. They got a vet.
He's 25. Yeah.
Oh man,
They got a vet.
That's like the guy. That's like the same thing that when the Falcons were drafting DeMarco Hellams in the 7th round, and somebody in the crowd was like 28-3, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, 28-3. I've heard that joke before," and like he walks off. It's the same thing with Stetson Bennett. Like, damn, we get it. He's old, but like, so is Hendon Hooker. So is half the
28
guys.
minus 3 is 25.
So
that's also good.
But here's the thing: like, there's a lot of guys in the draft this year, Ben, not just Stetson, that were old because of the COVID years, and they took 6 years in college.
Right.
Yes, Stetson was the most, hyped up about him because obviously he's been around for a while and won 2 national titles back to back as a quarterback. But there were a lot of guys in this draft that were old. There was like a lineman from Wisconsin, I want to say, that was the same age as Stetson, if not a little older. So, anyways, Stetson landed in a great spot, I think, over there with the Rams. Robert Beal with the 49ers in the 5th round, right after Ben Choppy Bachman's favorite boy, Chris Smith, going to the Raiders. I hope Robert Beal can stay on the team. I loved him coming back. He is the quintessential poster child of don't transfer, you will get drafted to the NFL even if you don't play your first few years. He's that guy.
Yeah, he's that guy, unlike Will Levis. With Robert Beal, he went to a place that when you look at the 49ers, I mean, he went to like the best defensive line coach and D-line room in the NFL. Like, you can't get developed or go to a better D-line situation than Robert Beal went to in San Francisco. So even if he's like a rotational piece or he's a backup for a bit, with his athleticism and with what San Francisco gets out of their players, I mean, they're probably one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFL. It's perfect for him. So I think Robert Beal might have, in terms of just situation, even though we don't have the highest hopes for him compared to the others, he might have went to the best situation possible. I don't think there's a better team he could have went to.
You look at the surrounding cast around him. So if he is pressed into duty as a rookie or next year or the year after that, the way that they have built the defense in San Francisco, it's kind of like the way the Niners, the Ravens, the Steelers. There's a handful of teams where guys who you don't really know much about or were late round picks and they're special teamers, but then they have to actually play and then they look good. And that could be Robert Beal. Just a lot of it has to do with surrounding cast and coaching staff and stability. And all of that is there in San Francisco. It's kind of like with Stetson. I think there were, in terms of system, it's really the Kyle Shanahan tree or the Sean McVay tree. And then he gets to go to Sean McVay. And I feel the same way about Robert Beal. Those cultural defensive culture, however you want to say it, franchises that just know how to develop and build around their scheme, and San Francisco is one of them. So really, Stetson and Robert Beal landed in fantastic spots.
Last one, guys. Warren McClendon. We already talked about Kenny McIntosh in the 7th round. Warren McClendon going to the Rams. I think he fits right in there too. They have some guys, but again, right tackle, they have Rob Havenstein at right tackle. I think this guy's like he's 30 years old. He's been in the league forever though. So he gets to learn from him. And the 2 undrafted players for Georgia, Kearis Jackson and Jack Podlesny, both find homes. Kearis Jackson going to the Titans on an undrafted free agent deal. And then Pod went to the Vikings.
Yeah, how good is their kicker? Because they ain't got an all-world kicker. He got a shot.
Yeah, Jack Pod's got a chance there. So, all 12 guys for Georgia end up at homes. Warren Erickson, we told you, his name was in the draft. It's not on NFL.com, though, but his name was technically in the draft. We didn't expect him to get drafted or picked up in an undrafted free agency, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him back maybe in Athens, trying to help the team out some way this offseason. So, guys, we went through the draft. We harped on these Falcons being allergic to dogs. It strikes again. It hurts. But, we'll get to watch a cool running back next year for the Falcons. And we'll get to watch Jalen Carter, blow up the interior of the NFC East offensive lines while the Falcons just run it up the middle, halfback dive with Bijan Robinson. So what we were doing before. But anyways, I digress. Jason sent me a message and said to go off on the Falcons right after Bijan was drafted.
My words were "let it rip" on Sunday.
Yeah, let it rip. And it's one of those things where I could say they're a poverty franchise again, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna rise above it like the Falcons do. I'm gonna rise up. You like that, Jason?
No, not at all.
Falcon's gonna Falcon, man. And
actually, I did some research. Pod might have a shot.
Ben, I was having a really good monologue right there. Ben, a great.
I was doing research because I said I want to see how good Pod. The kicker that he's going up against, a Florida Gator that he's going up against, the kicker. It's going to be a battle. Georgia versus Florida, the kicking battle in the Dome in Minnesota.
Just take us out, Ben. Just take us
All
out.
right.
Yeah, take us home. You know what?
That's Paul Maharry.
Yep.
That's Jason Butt.
Yeah.
I'm the go to the show.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
No, we're not done yet.
Whoa.
Paul can't handle it. He can't handle somebody taking the show.
I can't do that. No, guys, we appreciate you so much. Please go ahead and like the video. Maybe we can have a nice monologue to end the show one week instead of Ben just. Did you hear Ben? I want to real quick before we leave. Did you hear anything I was saying there?
Your questions take too long, bud.
Look, I'm asking you a question. Did you hear anything I said there, or were you just solely focused on the kickers? And then once you found what you found, you were like an ADHD young child and just had to spit it out right then.
Oh, did I listen to what you were saying? No, I haven't listened to what you're saying this whole show.
All right, guys. Well, that's the show, guys. We appreciate it so much, guys. Thanks again for tuning in with us. We'll be here next week, 7:30, to talk about Georgia football. And maybe we'll get somebody to fill in for Ben. I don't know. Thanks again, guys. This is the Sunday Call-In Show presented by UGA Sports. I'm Paul Maharry, Jason Butt, Ben Bachman. If you miss any of the show, check it out on the podcast, and we'll see you later. Thanks.